All right, everybody, welcome to the very first project here that's a part of the Advanced Front Ends course. If I refresh this page, you are going to see this. All right, so this is what we're going to be teaching, the very first concept of the GreenSock animation platform, otherwise known as GSAP, in this course. And as you can see, it's very simple. So initially, these projects that we create are going to be very simple like this. Even though some of you might think this looks pretty complex, we kind of have like this little line that animates, and then it opens up, and then we have that text kind of like floating in and out. To achieve this with pure vanilla JavaScript, especially if you watch the free JavaScript fundamentals course that I had, I would take some thought process in terms of getting this ready, but GreenSock Animation Platform is going to make it very simple. So let's go ahead and make sure you open up the project files for this particular lesson. It's called boring because it's kind of like a boring project, but it's going to really help demonstrate some key concepts when it comes to understanding GreenSock Animation Platform. So if you look at the index.html, we'll see that we have a h1 element that says boring. We have a div class of progress, which is just that middle line that kind of just animates over. And we could see that we also have no JavaScript. So this is the starting point. You saw what's pretty much going to be the end point here at the beginning of the video. In our main.sass file, we only have 3 rule sets. There's nothing exciting happening here. Our body element, we have an h1 element, kind of just getting that into position. And then we also have the progress div element, which is in relation to this line right here. Now, the one thing that's interesting about this one is we have a background color, a height of only 3 pixels. Width is 0, position's absolute, and top's 50 to get it kind of, in the middle of the browser. Width 0, so if I type in 50% or 50% right there, and make sure that you're watching the SAS and we are opening it with the live server, you'll see right here this line that goes from 50%. So our goal is to make that line grow, all right, from 0 to 100%. And we're going to use GreenSock Animation Platform for that. So initially, we're going to set that initial value at 0 right here. All right, so now we just don't see it at all. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So now the first thing we need to do in order to get this all animated, we have to include the GreenSock Animation Platform. And we're going to be using a CDN for this. And that's just like a very quick way of getting it integrated into a simple HTML project like this. We will look into other ways of integrating into more robust environments with NPM or the Node Package Manager later on in this course. So whenever you need to import the GreenSock Animation Platform, like you could literally type in, if you have GitHub Copilot here within Visual Studio Code, like import GreenSock 3 or something like that. And when you do that and hit enter, it'll give you right here, if I hit tab, a script that, a CDN essentially. But you really have to be careful with that because it might give you like an old, outdated version. So what I tend to do for these simple demos right here where we're using a CDN is to simply say GSock, or GreenSock rather, 3 CDN. And I usually come down to the CDN.js and I copy the script tag of this one. So it's 3.12.2. This was 3.7.1. So this is an actually old version. So you want to use the updated version for sure right here. Okay, so now that it is included, we can delete that line as well. We can go ahead and get started with writing the JavaScript. So the way GreenSock Animation Platform works at its most fundamental level is after we've imported it, we can simply use the to or the fromTo method in order to start animating elements. In this video, we're going to take a look at just from and to, and they do the same exact thing except opposite. All right, so we're going to use to because what we want to do is we want to take that progress bar, which is currently at 0 pixels width, so we can't see it, and we want to animate it to 100%. All right, so it would make sense entirely to use the to method, not from, okay? So I'll show you both though. And the way we do this is just simply say GSAP, And we have access to GSAP right here because we've imported it here up into the CDN. So GSAP, we'll say 2, and then we're going to say progress, and then we're going to open it up. Now, a lot of times you're going to see that GitHub Copilot recommendations. Just ignore that for now. And what we want to do now here inside of this object, so we can see it accepts 2 parameters. First, we have the selector right here, which is just the class. So we don't necessarily have to say something like this. We don't have to say const progress equals document.query selector progress. We don't have to do this, but we can. You could just put it right in there. And obviously, when you're working with a more complex project, it probably does make sense to first define all your variables up at the top, and then you could just access them that way. Sorry. So we could stick with this right here. That's just fine as well. And then the second parameter is an object. All right. So if you recall, if you watch the fundamentals course, you open up an object with these squiggly braces right here. And now what we can do is we can literally animate CSS properties within this section. And then there are some additional properties that are specific to GreenSock animation platform as well. So one of the most basic example to make this work, width. We're going to say width 100%. So if we say that and we go to our browser and refresh, there you go. Very simple. So we could also do a duration. So duration by default, let's just say 2. And when we do this, we're also going to see that it's a lot slower. And you could also see it's not a linear animation. It's sort of it slows down near the end. So it does have a default easing. We can also specify an easing. So if we type ease and we type something like power 1 in out, which you're probably confused, like where did you find that information from? Don't worry. We could see that it's pretty much almost exactly similar to how it was animating before. Now, if you type in GSAP 3 easings in Google, you're going to see 2 different documents from the same domain, assuming it hasn't changed. Of course, search engine results can change here quickly. But we can see that we have easings and then eases. So you want to make sure when you click on this, it says right up here, and let me open up very quickly my zoom tool. There we go. So if I zoom up, make sure right there it says 3.x, unless there's a version 4.0. You want to make sure that you're working with the latest version. And what's really cool is they have this editor that shows you easings and such. So you have like power 4, and this little green bar right here kind of just demonstrates how an element will animate based on these various different types of easings. So let's say, for instance, we want power 4. It shows you in the code right down here what this might look like. Now, typically what I do is I just copy this right here and I put it into the properties in the object. So I'll copy this, power 4, we'll go back. There we go, power 4 out. And it's going to affect our animation and what it looks like. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. So click that. It kind of goes in fast and then gets a lot slower at the end. So you can really experiment and play with that. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's take a look at what else we can do. Like say, for instance, this boring text. We wanted to make it kind of bounce in and out like with the elastic easing. All right, so how will we do that? Okay, so all we have to do is we'll type in GSAP. Now, right now, if you look at the current position of boring, where it says that, we might want that to be the end position. All right, so we could use the GSAP from in order to make it go from whatever values we specify in JavaScript through GreenSock Animation Platform to wherever it currently is. So just to show you what that looks like, it looks exactly the same, except we're using the from method. So we say, not progress, rather, we'll just say h1. And then inside of there, we could say maybe in the y value, so we use y right here. So You can affect the CSS properties in some of them within GreenSock without explicitly having to use actual CSS properties. So Y right here is just going to allow us to move things from the up and down. X, of course, is going to be horizontal. So Y, we could say negative 200 pixels, that would be. And if you wanted to use a percentage, you use Y %. And then you simply say maybe negative 20% or so, just like that. You don't actually put the percent in this case. So we're just going to say Y negative 200, and then we're just going to save and see what happens. So refresh. Okay, pretty boring, but you can see they happen at the same exact time. All right, so we could go ahead and give us an easing, and if we go back to the easings page, and I believe that would be, well, let's go to history. Let's see, right there. We could see that elastic, if we want it to bounce, we're just gonna grab this code right down there. I'm gonna copy it. We're gonna go back, save it, and let's refresh. Okay, now that's really kind of strange and too fast, but it's a very cool spring effect. So if we say duration 2 seconds, it's going to be a lot more slow and smooth. So there we go. It's very, very, very cool, and obviously very powerful. So let's also do one more. Let's say, for instance, when that progress bar goes all the way up, we'll expand the height from 3 pixels, because that's where it currently is set at in the CSS, from 100% height. So let's figure out how that would work. Well, we could say GSAP 2. We'll say progress, and then we're going to say height, 100%. All right, and let's just see what happens. I know it's not gonna work correctly. Just watch what happens. Well, because everything fires at the same time, it's pushing it all the way out and also making the height 100%. And because of how I have it positioned with CSS at top 50%, it's not consuming the whole screen. It's actually going down here. So to fix those few things, what we can say first is top 0. All right, so now watch what happens when we do that. Now it's kind of like expanding the screen at the same time, but we don't want all these animations occurring at the same time. We don't want these two at the same time. So what we can do to fix that is we can give it a delay, maybe of 2 seconds. So let's go back. There we go. Look how that just opens up. What's really cool is you can pretty much change any CSS property through here. So if we want to change the background color, and this part's very important, in CSS, the background color property looks like this, a background hyphen color. You can't use hyphens here. Whenever there's a hyphen, you remove the hyphen and we convert to camel case. So first letter is going to be lowercase, and then if there's 2 words as a part of it separated by a hyphen, you remove the hyphen and then just capitalize the next word. So background color, and then we could just say white. So now it's going to go from that light blue to white, full on white. You can make it black, you can experiment and do whatever you want. You could also put in custom easings on this and everything else that you want. Now, one thing that's important to note here is technically this is a sequence animation because first on the same element. So first on the progress element, we're making it expand out, and then we're also afterwards we're making it expand up as well and fill up the whole browser. Technically, you wouldn't want to do it like this. You would want to use the GreenSock timeline, which we're going to get into, and it makes our life a lot easier, as you'll find out. But for now, I think that's a good place to stop, and then we'll go ahead and test your knowledge with some an actual interactive test, and we will keep on learning because really we just scratched the surface.